Hi, I'm Tony from likeahumanbeing.com, and today I'm standing on the Mount of Beatitudes and looking down at Capernaum and the lake behind me.
The village, seen here in the distance from the Mount of Arbel, sits on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee, about 1.5 miles north of Cabca and only 3 miles from Bethsaida on the Jordan River. 2 monasteries currently occupy the site, the Franciscans to the south and the Greek Orthodox to the north. The Franciscan site includes the so-called White Synagogue, dating from the 5th century, and Peter's house, topped by a modern church that from the air resembles the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. A classic Greek church in the northern ruins is filled with beautiful iconography. This rough layout of the ancient town shows the Via Maris, or Way of the Sea, passing through the village. It was paved by the Romans, but after Jesus' time. You can also make out the synagogue in the center of town and Peter's house on the waterfront below it. This sign shows the excavated portion of the village centered on the synagogue. A village of about 1,700 people, Capernaum was constructed of black basalt boulders like these scattered across the hillsides. They're piled everywhere in surrounding fields, providing a home to creatures like the rock hyrax. The shoreline here is studded with the remains of ancient piers, visible in times of low water like this. Village streets in Capernaum were narrow and crooked, like this example, which is only about 6 feet wide. 10-foot-high walls stood running right up next to the street on either side. So when you think of the woman with the flow of blood touching Jesus' robe, it would likely have been in a narrow alley just like this. The people lived in dwellings called insuale, with rooms for extended family arranged around a central courtyard. Often one family slept in each small room. The only daylight came from tiny, high windows and doorways covered with hanging cloths instead of doors. Floors were packed dirt, solidified with lime or ashes, and roofs were wood beams overlaid with sticks and a layer of clay. Cylindrical roof rollers like this one had to be employed each spring to consolidate the roof after the winter rains. Most life in those days happened in the courtyard. For instance, grinding grain for daily bread for a family of 6 could take the wife up to 3 hours a day. The sound of a grindstone was the first thing you heard in the morning. Baking was done weekly on a simple open-air clay oven like this. Lumps of dough were stuck to the outside of the oven to bake, then laid out on the roof to dry in the sun to prevent mold. And since your courtyard was open to the sky, your neighbors heard everything that went on in your house. Archaeologists have concluded that this unusual insuale was actually Peter's house. There are several important clues. It became a public space instead of a private home as early as AD 50. An arch, seen at the bottom here, was added to support a stone roof, and over 100 Christian graffiti were etched into the plastered walls. This building survived with modifications for 300 years until an octagonal commemorative church was built directly over one particular room. And here you're looking down into that very room from the modern church above. The cemented walls you see are the foundations of the later church, while the loosely rounded boulders comprise the 1st century walls of Peter's house. This view shows the square house with octagonal walls superimposed over it. And here's a reconstruction of what Peter's insuale might have looked like. The room shown without a roof is the venerated room, which became the church. The street entrance is shown here. It would be topped by a stone lintel like this. A stairway to the roof existed in this area, the same roof where 4 men dug a hole and lowered their paralytic friend to Jesus. One of the ubiquitous cats of Israel unknowingly sits merely a few feet from where the King of the universe slept. Here's the view of Peter's house from the porch of the nearby 5th century synagogue. It's less than 100 feet away. This aerial view from the northwest shows just how close they really were. The synagogue's column meeting hall is on the right, with the Beit Midrash or study hall on the left. Many believe this structure was built atop an earlier black basalt synagogue from Jesus' day, possibly the same one the centurion paid to construct. One clue is this misaligned foundation. Synagogues of the day were columned halls with benches around 3 or 4 walls. This 5th century example had a separate balcony for women, but it is believed that men and women sat together on the main floor in Jesus' day. Synagogues were town halls with Torah before 70 AD. Community meetings, banquets, schools for the children, and other community events happened here. On Sabbath, they hosted Torah study, not worship, which was reserved for the temple in Jerusalem. Therefore, the focus of the building is toward the center, instead of toward the altar or stage as in most Christian churches. Portions of the Law and Prophets were read standing from this center, while speakers sat down to teach, and lively discussion followed. Among other things, the adjoining Beit Midrash served as a school for children. They started memorizing Torah at age 5, and by 12 had mastered the prophets and the writings as well. The Mishnah talks about the chirping of the children wafting out onto the streets as they recited Torah together. So when you visit the Capernaum synagogue, you are almost certainly walking on a place where Jesus once walked.